Peter Rosenberger. He's been a caregiver since the Cold War.
Welcome back to the show for caregivers, about caregivers, hosted by a caregiver. This is Peter Rosenberger, bringing you 30 years of experience to help you stay strong and healthy as you take care of someone who is not. And if you want to be on the show, 800-688-9522, 800-688-9522. John, you know, here we are on our 200th show.
This is our 200th show?
200th show.
Oh, interesting.
And when I looked at doing a show, a lot of people have been telling me, hey, you need to do a show, you need to do a show. So I asked around some advice from some folks, and I went to a friend of mine and I said, what do you think about this? And his words were, absolutely. Do the show, and here's what you do. Make them laugh. You, more than most, Peter, know how difficult the journey is of a caregiver. Make them laugh. You give them that permission and make them laugh. He's the only one that said that. He's the only one that could have said it, and he's with us today, and it's Jeff Foxworthy. Jeff, how are you?
I'm good, buddy. How are you?
I'm fine. I can't promise that I've made everybody laugh, but I've certainly.
You don't need to laugh. You don't need to laugh all the time, because then that points to some type of mental instability. But
well, I think we're looking at that in the rearview mirror.
You do. You know, I think that's what my job is. I tell people laughter is the release valve that keeps the boiler from exploding. And if you don't laugh once in a while and you don't sing once in a while, everybody goes crazy. So,
well, you and I talked about that over the years, and you almost look at this like I don't want to dramatize it. How do you say that, John?
I'm not going to answer that question.
Okay. I don't want to make it sound more than it is, but you almost look at it as a sacred trust with your audience. You know that so many of them there are dealing with difficult things in their life. And you don't get mean-spirited, you don't get political, you just sit there and look at life and laugh at it and invite them to do it with you, and it gives them a respite from the troubles that they carry. And that's the way you've looked at comedy from what you've told me over the years.
That's pretty much it. I mean, it's, to me it was never laughing at somebody, it was laughing with. And I was lucky as a comedian because I found what worked for me early, and it was just that idea that, hey, if I think this, or if my wife says this, or if my family does this, just trusting that surely we're not the only ones. And so, to me, the greatest compliment is for somebody to come backstage after the show and go, oh, my gosh, you've been in our house. You've been in our house, because you're taking something that they've thought or they said or they've done, and you're kind of making them laugh at themselves there. And when I really started looking at it different for the last 30 years, I mean, my wife and I have been in charge of the fundraising for Duke's Children's Hospital, and just always kind of been in the middle of a lot of cancer charities and ministries or whatever. And when it really dawned on me was when I would walk into a hospital unannounced. Nobody knew I was coming, and I'd go in a room and I would see one of my books, or I would see one of my CDs or one of my DVDs, and you're like, oh, wow, this has value in here that I wasn't even thinking about when I made this. This is allowing somebody, as you say, a respite from whatever they're going through for however long, for 5 minutes or, or people come up to me and go, hey, in my dad's last days, he and I sat there in the hospital and I read your book and we just sat there and laughed. And you're like, wow, this has value outside of simply just entertainment.
You started out in comedy a long time ago. What's changed?
I told a friend of mine a couple of months ago, I said, if I was starting over, I wouldn't know how to make a living, because so much of the money I made doing comedy was I did like 9 albums and, 2 Showtime specials and 2 HBO specials and a blue-collar tour. Well, nobody buys comedy records anymore. And, my first 2 records sold almost 4 million copies apiece, and now if you have an album that sells 50,000 copies, it's a hit, because nobody buys albums. They download stuff. You can't sell a DVD because every night I'm on stage, every third or fourth person is sitting there recording you with their phone. And so, I'm on YouTube before I get back to the hotel, and so all of that has changed. But the way I approach it hasn't. I still do the live shows. I still love that's out of everything I've got to do, whether it's TV or books or whatever. If you held a gun to my head and said you had to pick one, it would always be the live show. I still enjoy doing that. So,
maybe comics can start dressing up like NASCAR drivers.
Maybe something like that.
Well, I've watched you live numerous times, and you do enjoy yourself up there, and the audience knows that you enjoy it. You're not. It's not. Nobody's nervous. Nobody's wondering, oh gosh, is he going to crash and burn, or is he going to go off the rails and say something, whatever. It is just a flawless jaunt into the fun things of the American family and the American life and life as we know it. And your audience knows that, and they trust you with it, and they trust that you're not going to take them into some dark place. And you're one of those few comedians that don't work out your emotional angst out on stage, Well,
and I think I'm one of the lucky ones because the guy you see on stage is me. It's not like I have to get into character to do it. And somebody was asking me in an interview, they said, so as the lights go down and you get ready to walk out there, what are you thinking? And I said, I'm thinking I'm about to go talk to some friends for a little while. To me, we might as well be sitting on the couch in the living room just sitting there talking, except I'm hogging the conversation. But I do view the audience as friends, and so I think I'm very, very blessed that way that, you kind of found that thing that was comfortable, and there is a trust there. And so for me, it's important not to break that trust, to honor that.
Well, and you've done that for a very, very long time. And I don't want to call you the elder statesman of comedy, but, you kind of are.
Yeah. In my mind, you're still the new kid. I remember when I quit my job at IBM to start, and my hope was that I got to do it for a couple of years. I'm like, man, if I got to do this for a couple of years, wouldn't that be cool? And then I go back and get a regular job. But I always have a cool story about the 2 years I was a comedian. And, 2 has now turned into 33, and nobody's caught on. So keep your head down and your mouth shut.
If it ain't broke. Hey, listen, one of the things about caregivers is every one of us are going to deal with this stuff. You guys haven't been immune to this either. And you've watched your family, extended family, and so forth go through some things. Talk about your journey of seeing this and unfolding, and now how you're more attuned to the needs of a caregiver that you weren't before, and how are you guys navigating through some of these things?
Well, and I think it's a great point that you made earlier. Even if you're not a caregiver now, you're going to be. And I've always told people with my comedy, if you listen to an album or watch a special, it's kind of a snapshot of what was going on in my life at that point. And so now, like as my wife and I have become empty nesters, my joke is, because in my mind I thought empty nesting, I'm not going to wear pants the first year,
I'm not wearing pants now.
But immediately you go from taking care of your kids to taking care of your parents. I think they pass each other in the driveway. But, we dealt, my father-in-law was seriously ill for 20 years. So I've watched this. They live 1 mile away. I get down and get dirty with it. I see what it cost. I see what it costs financially. I see what it costs, emotionally. I see what it costs spiritually. And I really think, spiritually, you have to change the way you think in order to be effective as a caregiver.
One of the things that I bring a lot of attention to is when a spouse is taking care of a parent, and a lot of times it's the wife taking care of it, and the husbands are watching, sometimes helplessly, as their wives are shouldering a horrible burden and struggling to wrap their minds. Has that entered into your life at all?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I sit there and watch my mother-in-law, and you and I have talked about this. she didn't take care of herself. She wouldn't go to the doctor. She wouldn't. If she needed a new hearing aid, she wouldn't bring it up because she knew what it was going to cost, and she knew what we were spending, to take care of my father-in-law. And so to watch her not take care of herself, and then as secondary caregivers, you've got to step in and say, you know what, let me take over a while. You take a break. Let's go get your eyes checked and your hearing aid fixed and give you a respite. You go off for the weekend with my wife, and I'll take care of him. And, I think we're all capable of more than we're even aware of, but we're not capable of it endlessly. You do need those breaks from it. And so, for 2 decades, that's what we tried to give her, was a chance to take care of herself as well.
Did you watch as your wife struggled with this and as she dealt with her parents, and just how do I even minister to her? How do I help her through this process as she's struggling to wrap her mind around this thing?
Absolutely. And that's where, it's just inbred into human nature to want to be selfish, to think about I need. And so for me, it was changing the way I thought. Looking at my wife going, what is it that you need? Because you're going over there and you're bailing your mother out. You're taking people to the doctor. How can I help you? I'll make doctor trips for you, or I'll go make hospital visits. Or if you're going to go do it, then I'll make dinner while you're gone. I mean, it's like I found with dealing with kids with cancer. Everybody feels bad for the kid, but what I found in getting involved in it is it's not just the kid. It affects the entire family. Now you've got a mom that's sleeping night and day in a chair week after week, month after month in a hospital. You've got a dad that's had to take another job because mom's no longer working because she's at the hospital. Now you've got grandparents who are taking care of the siblings because dad's working 2 jobs and mom's not there. So, just like cancer, when you're a caregiver, it doesn't just affect
It's a family sickness, isn't it?
It's a family sickness. It really is.
Mm. Well, you didn't identify yourself as a caregiver. Most of us, I didn't for the first 20 years of this thing. I had a wife with disabilities, and I just did it. And then I was doing this interview, and we're going to bring this into play because this was such a banner moment for me. But I was doing this interview with AARP, and they said a lot of people don't even self-identify as a caregiver. How do you help somebody know if they're a caregiver? And I just, for whatever reason, I just lapsed into imitating you and said, if you, and it was, and it really connected. And so you and I did this thing for AARP as a PSA a while back, a bunch of you might be a caregiver, and it gave people permission to laugh at this thing. And I thought we'd just riff on a few of these, and I'll let you go because I know you're a busy guy, and I appreciate you calling in for this special show here. But you want to do a couple of these with me?
Yeah, why not? Let's jump in.
All right, I'll start it off with, if you have more than 6 doctors sending you Christmas cards every year, you're probably a caregiver.
Okay, if while at the grocery store you're the one demanding a price check on suppositories, you might be a caregiver.
If your hospital bed has never hampered your love life.
Oh, no, I'm out. I'm out, guys. I'm done.
See, that's one of those little images that you really just don't want to burn into your brain.
Well, no use wasting a semi-private room. Hey, listen.
Yes, exactly. All right. If you have a professional carpet cleaner on retainer, you might be a caregiver.
If you've ever hooked up your dog to your wife's wheelchair just to see if it would work.
You know what? Here's the problem with this, Peter. It's like redneck jokes. As I go, you're not making this up. You've actually done that one, haven't you?
I have footage.
All right, then that makes you a caregiver with issues.
We could have, yeah.
A new one for you this morning. If your wife says, I have 2 left feet, and your first thought is to apologize.
Oh, yeah. Guys.
I'll go back to the store and get the right one.
I'll go get the other one. I'm so sorry.
Get the right one.
Yeah, you see what he did there, John.
Oh.
And that's why I have a radio show.
Yeah.
But well, listen, do the one that my favorite, the one that you busted me up with every time.
Okay. If anyone has ever seriously asked you, baby, have you seen my left leg? You might be serious.
I just love that one, and I just love your heart, and thank you for encouraging me and being such a great mentor to me through this process. 200 shows, Jeff, and
you know what, Peter? Because I do remember when you called me and said, "Hey, I'm thinking about doing this," and here's the thing: you never know who this has helped, and you're not going to know that while you're here. But it's just like with comedy. People need to know they're not crazy. People need to know, hey, it's okay if you have days you get frustrated or days you get resentful. It's okay. And one of the blessings God gives us is time. In that He's not bound by it, but He gives us 24-hour increments. So even when we have an off day, you get a reset button, and the next morning you're like, okay, I got a chance to do this better today. And I think caregivers need to give themselves that grace, because it is a hard job, but it's a wonderful job, and you've been entrusted, to do. I mean, when people say, "What would Jesus do?" That's what He would be doing. He'd be loving on people that need it, and that's what he did do.
Yeah,
that's what He did,
and He took care even from the cross. He took care of His mother.
Yeah.
Even from the cross, He took care of His mother. He did do it. Jeff, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to call and
I'm
for.
so proud of you, and I'm proud of what you're doing, man. You're ministering to people that need it, because caregivers are no less important than the person that they're taking care of, and I think we need to be reminded of that often. And so, man, I just have me on for your 400 show. Will you do that?
I promise I will. All right, listen, Jeff Foxworthy, everybody. Don't go away. We'll be right back. This is Peter Rosenberger. This is the nation's #1 show for the family caregiver. We're glad you're with us. 800-688-9522, and we'll be right back.